have you ever gone like an entire day without speaking to another person, and then after that day and then another day and then another one? I mean, at first it feel, kind of peaceful. I mean, no drama, no expectations, no one to disappoint. But like after a while, right, something did begin to change. I mean, you don't just become alone. You become someone who likes, kind of forgets what it feels like not to be, and that's when, the loneliness stops being like, stop being in a situation and starts, becoming like a part of, my identity, of like our identity. But I guess being alone isn't always a bad thing. I mean, in fact, spending time by ourselves, it can help us to think clearly. It can, heal us emotionally and, in some way discover who we really are. But also, like, at the same time, there's like a line, a point where like healthy solitude, it's going to like slowly transform into, someone would say, a prolonged isolation. And most people don't even notice when they have crossed it. I mean, I guess I just want to talk about like what happens to your mind when you've been alone for so long. And I'm not just talking about this physically, I'm talking about it in like psychologically, So I don't know where to start, but I guess let's start with like the problem, and that is human. Like we weren't designed to like exist completely alone. Our brain, it evolved through connection. It evolves through conversations, touch, eye contact, shared experiences. When those things suddenly just don't exist for you for like weeks or months, and in very severe cases, even years, our brain begins adapting. And this may include like stop replying to messages, we stop making plans, and we also like just stop believing people actually just want to hear something from us, and eventually, being around other people, because of being so isolated for so long, you start to feel exhausted. You start to feel exhausted instead of being comfortable over the people around you. And it's not because you've become antisocial. I mean, I don't think that's the case, but I feel like it's because our mind has forgot what connection feels like, because of the long period of being alone. And I mean, loneliness doesn't always make you crave people. And I get that, but sometimes it convinces you to like avoid them, like to avoid people altogether, And I guess the strange thing about this loneliness, or this long-term loneliness, is that it changes how we think. Like, for example, I start overthinking simple interactions. I started like replaying conversations in my head over and over again. And in one case, I also assume people just secretly dislike me, and because of this, I became like really hyper aware of like every pause, every awkward pause, every delayed reply, to like every small mistake, and even when someone genuinely cares about me, part of you just struggle to believe that, like, are they really real? Like, do they really do care about me? Because like, our brain has spent so long expecting rejection, right, that acceptance begins to feel very suspicious, in my case. And the longer that I isolate myself truthfully, it is hard to reconnect again. It becomes harder, and it's not because people have disappeared on me, no, but I feel like it's because of the fear of quietly being replaced, or like the familiarity of it. I don't know how to talk about it, but again, like I said, many people think loneliness simply means feeling sad, but I don't really think so. I feel like it also means that it can make you emotionally numb, and because of that, because you've been alone, like, for so long, like days blur together, and at one point, motivation disappears, and you stop looking forward to things. You feel tired even after sleeping, and I feel like life begins to feel like you are watching everyone else being alive, while you're just standing there at the same spot, or like you're just standing behind invincible glass. I mean, like, like, what I can say is that you can see happiness, but you just can't seem to reach it, and I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like the key moment of all of this is that most people that don't realize is that the greatest danger of being alone for too long isn't like the silence or anything like that. It's that you slowly begin believing that, like, you deserve it, that you deserve the silence, and that you deserve to be alone. And you tell yourself that maybe, like, I'm just better off alone, maybe I'm just bothering people around me, or that maybe truly no one really cares about me anyway. And eventually those thoughts stop sounding like in your head, and it started to become a reality, and it starts sounding like facts. But of course, it is not. I mean, try to think positive about all of this. I mean, they are the voice of isolation, but it's because loneliness doesn't just change your surroundings; it changes your, like, perception of reality. And when your perception changes, I feel like your entire world changes with it. And that's the sad part. I mean, I don't know what to really speak about right now. I feel like, what I wanted to say is that if you've been alone, or like if you've been alone for like such a long time, right? I guess I just want you to know something, that the way that you feel isn't like a life sentence in a way. I mean, your brain does adapt to isolation, because that's what brains do, they adapt. But I feel like because they adapt, it also means that they can adapt back, and all that you needed to do is you need to start a conversation, one conversation, or just one message, or just one genuine connection. And of course, it won't erase months or years overnight, but it can be like the first step to just remembering what it feels like to be in a company, to belong again. So I guess that's what I just wanted to talk about here on this video. I do know that my video for the past couple of months seems not genuine. I feel like that's because I try to become professional, but I guess it's just not worked out for me. I feel like I just need to be as casual. I feel like that's where, like, my strong point is. But I don't know. I guess in this video is that if there's any part in this video that kind of resonate with you, I would really like to hear some of y'all's story. Like, have y'all ever gone through like a period where, like, you feel completely alone? Like, I also want to know, how did it affect your mind, or like if you're still going through it right now, what has been like the hardest part? Like, I would appreciate if you leave a comment down below. That's what all YouTubers do, right? But you never know. Some people might read your words and realize, like, they're not the only one feeling this way, right? And if this video helped some of you guys understand loneliness a little better, hey, consider subscribing, I guess. I would like to, if you guys would subscribe. You guys don't even need to like, just subscribe to me would be nice. I mean, like, there are a lot of people just silently struggling with emotions that they don't know how to explain. So, maybe together, in a way, we can help those people, or like just we can help ourselves feel a little less alone, I guess. If you guys like to watch a certain video, I hope you guys would watch that video. It's not going to be as professional, but I hope it kind of helps you guys in a way.